Well, hello and good morning, everybody. Today is May 20 of 2020. We are having our bi-weekly SIG API Machinery meeting. Thank you for those that are joining us today. We have two main topics that we wanted to cover in this day of May. One is the KEPs that are present and hopefully making it into 119. And the other one is a little bit of first pass open discussion about some stats on our open PRs and open issues in SIG API Machinery and what are we thinking about doing with those things in the future. So with that said, let's start with the first item, which is the KEPs that made it into 119. So David helped me to pull together a list of the, thank you, David, of the KEPs that made it into 119. Either they are merged or they are ready to go. So let's go one by one, and if anybody is interested in talking about them more in depth, we can do that. First one is this one. Okay.
Yeah, about this one. So status conditions, and conditions in particular inside of status, are very common in many APIs, but the schemas are slightly different. This KEP is about trying to make those schemas, well, trying to provide a standard schema, and when we get to future versions of the APIs using conditions, they could use them. We also get a lot of questions for this from people outside of KK Core, and a lot of requests for the basic helpers. Find this condition, merge, set this condition, take an action until this condition is true, those sorts of things. So this KEP proposed a particular schema, and there's a PR open for us to, well, that's the KEP PR, but there is separately a PR open that has the type, and at some point we will probably review and merge that this release.
So I like this. I just have one question. It looked like the discussion on this had really not concluded on the topic of helpers. It seems to me that if we're going to define the condition type in Meta v1, and Evan suggested we define the slice of condition type so that we can attach the helpers as methods on the slice of condition, then those helpers need to be defined in Meta v1 as well.
Okay, we would not define define functions on top of our types. That goes against our API conventions. I think that we have significant utility just in the conditions themselves. That is the big claim here. And that the helpers, if and when they come, I don't think they're going to require a separate KEP.
Certainly one can make helpers elsewhere, but it's more convenient if they're methods on the data type that's in the API.
Doing it that way.
I think it's good to solve one problem at a time here. Like standardizing the types is a big enough problem, and then getting the helpers right, it sounds like a good follow-up problem.
Okay, thank you.
Very good. Let's go to the next one. This is also you, David. If you.
Yeah, this one did not make freeze. There was discussion over, do we want to go this way? Do we want to go a different way? There was even a third way proposed. I don't know if Daniel ended up writing it down.
Yeah, it's only written. Yeah, there's three options here. One of them is just in my comment here, okay. Which is the one written up is like modify kubeconfig files. Another one David thought of but rejected as an alternative is to have API server somehow tell clients what rate they should stick to. And a third alternative is to make our library pay attention to a environment variable so that you have a way to turn it off no matter how the client library is being used. That's the one I thought of. That's the extra one I thought of, and it's just because the Go language tends to do that. So and it seems easy, but yeah, if anybody has opinions on this, please weigh in.
Yeah, I will admit, I will concede that it is easy. And if we decided to do it, I don't know, that's a minor enough change. We could
maybe it doesn't even need a KEP.
Yeah. But I think that we should at least go and vet it with people from probably SIG CLI would care, and I'm betting Jordan has an opinion on MVARs as effective API to our clients that recommend using as libraries.
Yeah, I think the point of doing it this way is like the whole problem is that we need to make a measurement. So we need to have some way of turning it off, but not like permanently turning it off. But we're not sure that we want we don't want to spend a lot of time and energy in making the mechanism if we're just trying to get the measurement. So this would be like a low effort way of doing it that doesn't promise users very much.
Well, actually, it's really like the still using an environment variable has the problem that you have to get the environment variable set in all the controllers, which is a non-trivial issue. I suspect that the min work approach may be having the server return some kind of a suppress signal.
Well, no, I mean, that's fully novel, right? The idea that you would make a request and then you would get back a header, and we have no concept of using headers really as API, not separate headers that are not standard, and then honoring that in a client library and then communicating that, if we wanted it to be an API, to other libraries as well, definitely seems like a significantly bigger thing to bite off than saying we're going to put an experimental NVAR in one spot. It's not super convenient for me, but I can live with that lack of convenience if we decide to do it.
Yeah, to roll this out in practice, you'd go to your pods and set an NVAR in there.
Well, you'd make an admission webhook and add it probably.
Sure, you could do it that way.
I'm sorry, which this are you guys talking about? The same this?
The MVAR.
The MVAR, yeah.
Yeah, like you make an admission webhook and it runs on namespaces matching pattern X.
Oh, I see.
And that solves my problem immediately for testing. It doesn't win points for beauty, but
yeah, that's there's also some pods that maybe don't go through, like if you've got any static manifests laying around in your system still, you need to adjust those separately.
Yeah, but doable.
Yeah, definitely not beautiful. But I guess my hesitation here is just making a promise to users when we're looking for a low effort way to measure something, and it seems a little. I'm not sure if there's other use cases for it, I guess is my holdup, right? Like if we're the only users for this thing and we only want it to turn it off temporarily, so we can measure stuff.
I'm willing to start there. I don't mind starting there. I will point out that we do have it on many commands, and that I think most people who write their own probably overlook the need for this. That there may still be utility in being able to have a client-side throttle if somebody wanted it, right? We'd probably still have one in OC, for instance. But I'm certainly willing to start in a different spot. If we want to start in an MVAR, that's fine. Returning a header and then parsing a header back on the client side and using that to go manipulate the client that made the request, I'm not very happy with all the different things that would have to be created to do that.
Yeah. All right. I don't think we're going to settle this one here today.
Okay.
like for the administrative purposes, it's not merged and the deadline is passed. How?
This is not making the
okay.
QPS change here isn't going to make it in 119.
Okay. Thank you. If we wanted, I think there is an exception appeal that we could do, but
I would rather not. You know,
maybe as the next step, we should ask on like the SIG mailing list or the Kubernetes dev mailing list and see if there's users who would take advantage of this, so we can find out if we're the only people that want it or not.
Okay.
Because I think we would, if we're the only users for this thing, I think the MVAR probably makes sense. But if other people would take advantage of it, then maybe it makes sense to do something a little bit heavier weight, but higher quality.
Sounds good. Okay, thank you, David. Let's go to the next one, which are the beta requirements for priority and fairness.
Did we not merge this? Was there outstanding comments? Are we just waiting for an update?
That's a good question.
I thought it looked pretty good, if I recall.
I think my comments ended up addressed, and then you and Wojtek came in a couple days later, but I didn't go back and double check.
Okay, yeah, it looks like there's some outstanding comments still. Maybe we can ping Min. I think this is minor enough that we can get an exception, maybe.
I didn't realize defining beta requirements would require an exception, right? I mean, I think our beta requirements stand regardless of whenever it moves to beta.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
If necessary, we can probably get an exception for that.
Yeah.
Are you going to follow up on this one, Daniel?
Yeah. I'll ping that.
Oh my God.
So just a couple questions or comments here on that one. There was a question about asking for documentation about observability. We already have that in our concept page in the user-facing doc. It wasn't clear to me whether or what was being requested beyond that. And then another thing that we talked about earlier was adding extending the status to report the concurrency limit absolute values calculated by each server. We talked about doing that. I think I could do that. I'm not entirely clear on what deadlines we're looking at here. I think I could still do that like today. Open that PR.
Yeah, I think I don't know that we have to enumerate everything that we're going to do in the KEP, right? Like we can do more. It's the minimum requirements.
Yeah. The KEP is more about controlling which features went in. That what you're describing is not a significant change to the feature. So,
yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Moving on to the next one. So this is from David, the required transition from beta.
Yeah, this one actually originated some time ago, and then maybe a month or two ago it came back up in SIG Arch, and we decided to try to push it through. This requires that APIs, API resources, well, technically API kinds, but basically the type that you serve via the REST API, when you create one in beta, it has a defined lifespan. The beta will be deprecated after 3 releases, and then 3 releases after that, that particular beta will be removed. You'll stop serving it. This doesn't mean you cannot remain in beta. It just means that to remain in beta for more than 3 releases without being deprecated, you need to produce a second beta. And that's a good signal to users that what they're using isn't considered to be fully stable, but it avoids things rushing all the way to GA. So the KEP merge was a SIG Arch KEP, but API Machinery has to be able to put the teeth in it. And so this release, we're adding a generator to be sure that a generator and a verify to be sure that all of our beta APIs come in with assigned deprecation times based on when they were introduced, and that when they reach the end of their life, our API server will stop serving them. And generator exists today, and I'm going through trying to handle the stop serving part sometime in the next probably 2 or 3 weeks.
That sounds good. Do you need any action from any of us on this?
It touches the REST handler, so I've been assigning stuff to Jordan just because I thought he kind of deserved it because he built the warning mechanism. But if someone else is interested in how it wires through, I'd be happy to have them review.
That works for me, but we can find people if Jordan's too busy.
Okay.
Should we link any of the generator code or other related issues to this issue? I was wondering, when do we close this issue? Because the KEP is merged, right? And this
KEP is merged. I would like to keep the issue open till the generators and enforcement are in place.
I agree.
And yes, I can make a note to link those.
Okay, thank you. That would be awesome. So we can track it from here.
Sure.
Thank you very much, David.
David, this only applies to REST APIs, right?
Yes. So the intent from the KEP is that we know we want beta things to not live in beta forever, but we recognize that the only thing that we are able to cleanly enforce today is the actual REST API. Things like feature gates and fields within existing APIs are unenforceable, so it doesn't make sense right now to list a mission statement that we have no practical way to measure.
Do we?
Yeah, I can see something.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Do we see anything extending, like, for example, like the KMS Proto API is beta 1, I guess. The exec credential plugin API is technically beta. Like, do we see ever extending into those, or are we just sticking with REST for now?
I don't. It's not like it's sitting on my plate and I'm saying I want to do that. Next release. I would like to come up with a way to do that, but I don't have a good way to do that right now.
I would say that the user-facing APIs are drastically more important than the cluster operator-facing local APIs. But
I would agree with that. They have a much broader impact.
Yeah. I mean, I think logically, the cluster operator APIs are also important and should go to GA. Like, do you really want your secrets encrypted with a beta API? But that affects fewer people.
Yeah. So I'll say this KEP did not attempt to overreach in that area, Mo. So it would be, I think, it's in my mind, a separate KEP to bring forward, try to control anything else.
Are we good? Let's go to the next one. This is from Jordan. Jordan, I saw you are on. Do you want to comment?
Yep, this is introducing a mechanism for the server to communicate warnings back to API clients, and default handling inside client Go and kube control to surface those warnings to users. And then the first use of that mechanism is to connect to the cool new deprecated API indicators we have to warn about use of deprecated APIs. So this uses the generated bits that were introduced as part of David's KEP.
Okay.
Yeah.
And this starts in 119, right?
Yeah. 119, the plan is to get the server-side mechanism and the client Go and kube control mechanisms in place, and then specifically surface warnings about use of deprecated API versions. The KEP also has other goals, custom resources, admission webhooks, and then field level warnings, but those are not currently planned for 1.19. If we just go super fast, maybe some of that can come into scope for 1.19. But first goal is to get the mechanism and basic warnings in place.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I think Jordan presented that rather extensively last meeting. Is that correct? Was it 2 meetings ago?
A couple meetings ago, maybe.
Yeah, it was recently.
Yeah.
So if you can go look in the video recording if you want more details on that one.
Yeah.
I think the next KEP is tracing an API server. I think a number of months ago, David Ashpole presented this to us. And at the time, it had a bunch of stuff with like controllers setting an annotation on objects so you could track the thing as it went through the various controllers. That met with some resistance for like theoretical reasons, like it's doesn't have a clean fit to how objects are actually updated in the cluster. I think Mike Spreitzer and I both voiced this in various versions of this concern. He has recently, like a couple of weeks ago, updated it rather significantly. So now it is just about the requests made to API server. So like API server calls out to a webhook. Eventually we call out to etcd. So like all of those calls would go through this tracing mechanism now and be reported to like a open tracing collector type thingy, which I don't actually have an amazingly great understanding of. So I'm much more inclined to go with this after the update. It's like quite significantly different, and like it's very theoretically sound that that tree of calls should be traced in this way. There's a few open comments, and I need to go through this again. It does add a new call out from API server, because now API server would be calling and delivering the tracing notifications to the open tracing collector thingy. And so I think that, go ahead.
Does it eliminate the, like right now we have a very simple and shockingly useful message about this particular step was slow, and it comes out and drops right into the log. Everyone's logged by default. There's no friction to using it. And it's very easy to like wire up to a grep and a notifier. Does this eliminate that and say?
No, I don't think it. I don't think it has anything to do with the existing slow request tracing that we have.
Okay.
At least that isn't mentioned in the KEP. Maybe it should be.
In the very first line of the motivation, but I just want to make sure, like, it doesn't say we're going to remove it. It just says that it currently uses this and we can do something better. I would just be disappointed to see the easy thing that solves a lot of use cases with low effort get replaced.
Yeah, in particular, the configuration. My remaining hangups on this is basically configuration, right? Like we got to deliver this to some external service now, and like I don't know. Imagine you have this installed in a cloud and you're a user of it, but you don't have access to like the config files. Like, who is using the tracing? Who needs to be able to configure it? That's my remaining question on this, because it's not obvious to me that like clouds are going to configure these for users. So yeah, actually, David, I'd appreciate your thoughts on that when you have a chance to,
sorry, I did not. This wasn't on my radar until like 3 minutes ago when.
Yeah. I thought I pinged you on it, but it probably evaded your. You probably put this in the mentally like not looking at this right now bucket a while ago, but it is quite different. So it's worth another look. It's probably a little late for this one, but I do feel bad in that it took, I was not super speedy on the reviews here. So if we pull it together in the next couple of days, I'd be okay with an exception, but it's not looking like it's going to get there, but maybe, I don't know.
I'd like to have a look before expressing an opinion.
Yeah, I wasn't going to merge it without, especially because it's adding a new egress from API server, which is that I think we need to think about those carefully.
Okay.
Okay, probably it's going to miss.
Since we're at the last cap, does anyone on the call have a cap or other large feature that we have omitted from this list and should be aware of? All right, I'll take that for a no.
Okay.
I think there's still the status code discussion open, but I'm not sure if we can or should discuss it here right now.
Did that rise to the level of a cap, the status return?
Yeah, it's a cap, and there's a discussion in the issue and on the cap about whether we should do it. I think Anton and Clayton discussed it a little, but I'm not sure how.
Yeah, I don't think we settled on that one last I saw. So I would assume that we're not. That's not landing.
No, it's definitely not. It's not for 90. We thought at first, but then there was a discussion.
Yeah, I do think that we should probably come up with a better way of tracking all the caps that we're trying to pay attention to. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it was even hard, to be honest, it was hard to pull this list. I think we need to find a better way of tracking. And that's, for me, at least, the deadline of KEPs enhancement freeze came from nowhere. I should probably have been more aware of the date, but suddenly Monday we were all running to see which KEPs required attention. So maybe for the next one. Okay. Very good. So looks like on KEPs we are good. The next one, really, we can time box it to maybe 10 minutes or 15 or less. I don't know if people is interested or not. It's more like maybe bureaucratic cleanup of the backlog. There was this presentation to the chairs and TLs. Looks like there is some interest from the contributor SIG, Contribex, to start, let me move my Zoom toolbar, creating some dashboards to show how different SIGs are doing in terms of open PRs. So this is public. I will put the links later. I put some on the notes. But you can see this is all Kubernetes. Actually, it's all SIGs. I was mistaken last night when I was looking at this, and somebody clarified to me this morning. This is all the repos, including outside of Kubernetes, that are owned by the SIGs of Kubernetes. And this is all the outstanding open pull requests. There is a similar one for issues that I have it open somewhere here. So far so good. It's not our problem, but in the next graph, so API Machinery now has a bunch of open PRs. I think we are not the worst offenders because we've been constant in the number of open. Like, either we are not the worst offenders or we have been for quite some time. But there is a growth in general, right?
Can we get that on a T-shirt? Like not the worst offenders.
that is very bad. There are different cuts to this, and I think this is work in progress because some of the information I would like to have is not here. So I was looking at different cuts. There is other dashboards, for example, these are awaiting. So there is a cut for 10 days. There's a cut for more than a year. And it's complicated to pull together because, for example, last night I was doing just this, and last night was 222. Let's refresh to see if today it changed to 23. Okay, this is only in Kubernetes, right? So the number is smaller than the number that is shown here of the open ones, 261 something, you can see. So there is probably other repos like Client Go or others. I think the discussion, we had a mini discussion with David and Daniel the other day, and maybe I opened the discussion here of what do you guys think should be our response to this. For example, PRs that have been open for more than a year, the bots mark them as stale and then as frozen. So we have a bunch of frozens. Like if I do here label.
I think the bots mark it as stale and then rotten. If it has frozen on it, I think some human has done that.
Okay. So frozen is 10, for example, only. Stale.
There's probably more frozen issues than PRs.
Yeah, 15 stale. We can look at easy issue. Okay. It never works when you want to do it live.
One thing that I didn't remember being on the chart before, I don't know if it's there now. Do they have like our rate of closure?
Yeah, so this is a nice graph. This is for us, API Machinery. I think it's nice, more or less, because when the graphs overlap, we are closing at the same time that are being open, which makes me feel better because feels like the work that we are doing twice per week pays off. But we have to decide. I think our biggest problem is the backlog, and this is what I see here in this graph, right? There was a spike somewhere here. We are the green ones. But then, look, we've been even worse, 295, 300, 300.
So out of curiosity, do you know where we stand in terms of closure rate compared to other SIGs?
Yeah, I'm wondering, so we have 300 open, but are they the same 300 the whole time, or are they a different 300?
There's also the, are we closing them at a rate of, what is that, 8 per day? And the project average is 18 per day, or the project average is 2 per day. I would feel a little bit differently about our.
Okay,
backlog.
This is. Can you see these ones here?
Yeah.
So this is kind of the average is.
Yeah, but that's our average, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, API Machinery, right? You want to see the per. So you can, as everything, and this is a nerd snipe for me. Data is available. So you can start getting into it. Looks like overall, for all the SIGs, we are not doing that well because.
No, but that probably has to be divided by the number of SIGs included in this graph.
Let's choose SIG node.
Okay.
or SIG off. The SIG off guys are really lazy.
You want to feel better?
Please, David. Thanks.
Okay, this is SIG off. I think SIG node.
David is TL of co-TL of SIG auth for anyone on the call who didn't realize that.
Yeah.
I suspect that SIG auth has significantly less issues opened and closed overall.
Yeah. SIG auth was under 2 on average.
Yeah, it's very low, very small.
Okay.
Would be good to see if we can have this view, but also overlap different SIGs to compare. So this is work in progress. I'm of the opinion of cleaning up a little bit the backlog, and if things are, stale, frozen, rotten, we should go through them and decide. If something wasn't looked at for the last year, in other lives, I have said, nobody's going to look at it, so we close it. But I think it's something that it's open to discussion.
Yeah, some of us like the issues to document the problems in the system and not necessarily what we intend to fix right away. But many people don't feel that way.
I am a try to keep track of the things that are broken, but I can admit that if a PR hasn't seen action for more than 6 months or so, it's not super likely to end up merged of its own accord. So is this just issues? There was, yeah, PR velocity. So I can imagine being okay with giving people notice on their PRs and saying, find the right person to bug on Slack, or we are going to close it. Or potentially even just auto closing it and suggesting that a new PR be opened, because the new PR would end up triggering us through like the weekly scrub.
The
so it's
triage
not
meeting, yeah.
perfect, but if you just aged out everything older than 6 months,
So I think
probably isn't
something
great.
else worth mentioning is that our triage meeting is very imperfect in that if we pass some number and then later an issue gets tagged as API machinery, we won't see it in our next triage meeting. So
it's true.
We're
just trying to be better, not perfect, right?
Yeah.
So that was my second point here. I feel I've been promising to take a look to this deeper, and I couldn't put it in action, but I think this is something that can help with that situation, which is if we can use the labels that are proposed here for the triage workflow, instead of just the number, that could help us filter. Like, probably at the beginning it's more work because we will have to go through everything that it's in the backlog, and some automated process should assign the untriaged issue.
Yeah. Yes. Isn't SIG Network using some sort of triaging bot or something like that?
Maybe. I don't know. There is some discussion going on. But I don't have all the data right now. I don't have all the clarity. So
yeah.
I would say, I just wanted to bring this to everybody's attention. Some of you may not care. I think it's important. We are doing a lot of work every week, and I would like us to look also pretty in the graphs. And that's why, I'm thinking on ways of taking an action on this.
I wonder if, as part of our bug triage meeting, there's some stat we could look at to see if we're doing better or worse, like just to keep ourselves honest.
That's a good point. Yeah, I mean, I'm very proud of our triage meeting because we've been constant, and I think that is one of our biggest values there. But definitely we could, try to measure more. For now, the only thing that we do is, did we close the list of things that appeared since the last one or not? And we can.
Which is quite an accomplishment some days.
Yeah. So anyways, that's it. I don't know if anybody has any comments, and if not, it's fine. We can close the meeting. Okay, so more to come on this one. I will be doing some work in the background, and when I have some updates, I will try to present them here. It's a good reminder that we do bug triages twice a week, so feel free to join. And that's all. I don't know if anybody on the call has anything else that wants to be discussed, or we can call it a meeting. So, message in the chat, Mika asked if he can get a review of this one anytime soon.
And this was on the adding a metric for the deserialization from etcd or serialization from etcd errors that we currently don't track. This was for the bitflip issue.
Okay.
I remember talking about wanting to do this. Was Han not assigned? I associate metrics with Han.
Okay, I can ping, at least on my company side, I can ping these people to see if they can take a look. Did they not? Yeah, nobody took a look. Okay, I will remind them.
Yeah, you can also find those people on Slack and ping them. I think they're all probably on Slack.
Yeah.
Thanks.
No problem. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry, I don't know why this is sat for so long.
Okay, well, with that, I thank everybody for joining. I hope you are staying healthy and positive in the middle of this situation, and I hope to see you soon. Thank you for joining.
Everyone.
Bye-bye.
Yes.